Part 40. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 419. Zoro looked at the flying king seagulls. He looked at Rog's giant wooden hand again. Rog, it's up to you, Sauron said. Rog immediately understood what Sauron meant. Okay, Rog said. Rog manipulated the giant wooden hand to capture Sauron. The king seagulls were about to dive and bomb. At this time Rog seized the opportunity to throw Sauron out. Zoro was thrown by Rog's giant wooden hand, like a baseball being thrown. Zoro flew straight towards the swooping king seagulls. His 3 samurai swords are all in place. The katana in both his arms are horizontally rearward, like an eagle spreading its wings and soaring towards the sky. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's at the moment. After the ninja king on the deck saw it, he said in shock, could it be that he wants to use that kind of move? When Zoro first met and fought with the king of ninjas in the Alabaster Rain lands, he used a powerful bottom-up flying 3-sword style move. The king seagull was still swooping down, not paying attention to Zoro who was flying up. Sauron looked directly at the king seagull at the front. 3-sword style. Flying eagle slash. Zoro's 3-sword style slashes with powerful slashes. Kill like an eagle flying to the sky. Zoro's arms and katana are like 2 wings. The samurai sword in the mouth is like an eagle's beak. King Seagull and Sauron drew closer for a moment. Puff. Sauron's body flew over the king seagull. The body of the king seagull suddenly began to fall downwards. Blood flew from the air. The other 3 king gulls were shocked and instinctively flew away quickly. The king seagull that was being beheaded finally swooped down on the deck of the Discovery. Boom! The king seagull killed by Zoro hit the Discovery. Everyone looked at the king seagull. I saw that its head was now covered with blood, and it was obviously fatally injured. Where's Zoro? Chopper suddenly asked. Too bad, Sauron's whereabouts are unknown now, Rog said. Sauron used a powerful attack just now, but he also flew far away. I'm afraid it has fallen into the sea. Zoro Luffy shouted towards the sea. Zoran Usopp and Chopper also shouted quickly. Rog looked at the sea, gritted his teeth and said, Zoran, you must be safe. Sauron had just used a powerful beheading move and fell into the sea. It is also difficult for Sauron to swim in the waves. He simply held his breath and began to swim under the sea. After reaching the bottom of the sea, Sauron felt that it was more stable here than on the surface of the sea. Sea water flow is less exaggerated. It's no wonder, because the sea is surging due to the blowing of the storm. The sea below is much more stable. From here Sauron began to swim towards the bottom of the Discovery. After some swimming, Zoro finally reached the bottom of the Discovery. He stuck his head out from the side of the boat. Rog discovered Sauron first. Zoran, Rog said. You survived, Usopp said. That's great, Chopper said. Sauron was a little embarrassed, and said, stop talking nonsense, help me up quickly. Rog directly put down the giant wooden hand and brought Sauron up. Sauron returned to the deck, panting hard. It's really thrilling, Sauron also said. The Ninja King walked up to Sauron, raised his thumbs up and said, Sauron, good job. Sauron smiled at him and said, humph, that's how swordsmen fight. Although the King of Ninjas is usually taciturn, he is Sauron these days. The 2 sides actually have a great understanding. It can be said that heroes cherish heroes. But the crisis is not over yet, said the Ninja King. I saw the surviving 3 king seagulls continue to fly over. The eyes of these 3 king seagulls were full of anger. They have been traveling the sea together as 4 brothers for a long time. But now one has been killed. The remaining 3 great king seagulls can be said to be surprisingly angry. They flew towards Discovery at amazing speeds. This time they will use heavy bombs for a devastating attack. This time it's really your death. Everyone on the deck of the Discovery was very serious this time. Now the life and death of both parties will be decided. The Ninja King said, "Rog, it's up to you." Luffy said, "I'll go up too." Sauron said, "How could it be without me?" Roger said, "I see." Rog grabbed the three of them with the giant wooden hand. The goddess of spring is also starting to prepare at this time. She whispered magic words. And the three axes, the golden axe, the silver axe, and the iron axe were taken out together. This extremely powerful magic attack. Three king gulls swooped swiftly toward the Discovery. Ice. Fire. Wind. Combined storm. The spring goddess casts powerful magic. The force formed by the rapidly swarms of ice cones, fireballs, and wind force killed the pest. These attacks hit three king gulls head-on. Although these individually are not very lethal, they cause great disturbance to the king gull. The giant wooden hand controlled by Rog held the three of them tightly and said, "Go." Luffy, the king of ninjas, and Sauron were thrown out. The three of them flew to the three king seagulls respectively. The three king seagulls are also about to drop all the remaining dozens of heavy bombs. Rubber Dot Tempest. The secret of three sword styles. 3,000 worlds. Ghost killing god. The powerful attack of the three hit three king seagulls. Three king seagulls were hit by the trio's ace-trick. With a piercing scream, the three king seagulls lost their balance and fell to the sea below. The three also flew out after this life and death battle. The last three all fell into the sea below. Roger and Usopp saw the king seagulls falling down. Three king seagulls fell into the sea one after another. Fortunately, Discovery is already urgently using the waves to move forward at this time. Otherwise, it would be a real headache for the bodies of the three king seagulls to hit it. The huge bodies of the three king seagulls fell into the sea with a splash. Regardless of whether the three king seagulls were killed or injured, they all sank into the sea completely. But at this moment, the first king seagull that hit the deck just now trembled slightly. Those eyes opened suddenly, and they were eyes of infinite hatred. Everyone was startled by these huge eyes. Usopp was horrified and said, "Oh my god." Rog reacted immediately and quickly manipulated the hand of the giant tree to jam the neck of King Seagull. After holding his throat for a while, the King Seagull completely died. But those huge, fierce eyes kept looking at everyone. "Don't worry, it's dead," Rog said. At the same time, the giant wooden hand manipulated by Rog loosened the neck of the King Seagull. Chopper stepped forward very cautiously to check. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 420. "No problem, it is indeed dead," Chopper said after checking. Chopper is proficient in medicine and can determine whether a living thing is truly dead. With Chopper's judgment, Usopp was also relieved. "Okay, Captain Usopp is going to announce everyone's victory." Usopp quickly and exaggeratedly jumped on the head of the King Seagull to give a lecture. All the brave sea warriors, under the heroic leadership of Captain Usopp, finally killed the powerful and ferocious giant seagull monster. This is something that should be celebrated. It is not only an honor that belongs to Captain Usopp. It also belongs to all the sea warriors. "Glory," Usopp said proudly. Chopper was very excited to listen to Usopp's glorious speech. Roger looked at the sea again. "How are Sauron and the others doing?" Rog said. Now Sauron, Luffy, and the King of Ninjas are all in doubt about their lives. But both of them were able to swim in the sea. As long as nothing happens to Luffy, it'll be fine. In the middle of the sea, Sauron and the King of Ninjas both fell into the sea and swam below the surface of the sea. And Luffy also struggled and sank below the surface of the sea. Zoro and the King of Ninjas catch this landlubber and swim together. After swimming for a while, I finally arrived at the side of the Discovery ship. "Look, where is it?" Usopp said. "Here," Chopper said. "Give it to me." Rog hurried to the right rear of the Discovery and controlled the giant wood hand to catch the three of them together. Zoro, Luffy and the King of Ninjas were caught on the deck. Luffy was filled with sea water. Sauron and the King of Ninja looked very embarrassed. But it was a victory anyway, Sauron said, it was a good battle. The Ninja King said, Zoro, I really saw it this time. The purpose of a swordsman is not to be afraid of death. Usopp said, the enemy is nothing special in the air. Under the leadership of Captain Usopp, you finally won the victory. Rog said, by the way, save Luffy quickly. When everyone looked at Luffy, Chopper was squeezing the sea water out of Luffy's stomach, which was as distended as a balloon. You really deserve to be a doctor. You're really dedicated, the Ninja King sighed. Usopp said proudly, this is because Captain Usopp taught the crew well. After working hard for a while, Chopper finally squeezed out all the seawater in Luffy's stomach. Luffy, everyone shouted. Luffy slowly opened his eyes. He opened his mouth and said, meat. Then sat up. Where's the meat, where's the meat, where's the meat? Luffy quickly looked around and asked. Usopp said with shame, even after he drowned and passed out, he didn't forget to eat meat. Luffy realized that it was just a dream, and remembered to fight. Have all those seagulls been killed? Luffy asked. They were all killed, Rog said. Great, Luffy said. Now after fierce fighting, the 4 king seagulls were finally wiped out. Discovery is already in a mess. Everyone then arrived at the front of the deck. The fighting has basically stopped now. But there is still a dead king gull on this deck. It's so big, what should I do? Chopper said. Throw it into the sea, Usopp said. Luffy suddenly had an idea and said, by the way, what about food? Seagull meat is delicious. It's still such a big seagull. Yeah, that's a good idea too, everyone agreed. Sanji looked at the huge seagull and said, such a big seagull can cook for a long time. Luffy said happily, I want to eat seagull barbecue, seagull stew, seagull sandwiches, and seagull noodles with bolognese. Usopp said, you just know how to eat. Everyone laughed. After a valiant battle, everyone finally wiped out the 4 brothers King Hyu. The storm is still raging, but a major victory has been achieved aboard the Discovery. In the stormy sky, Leo continued to fly here. He witnessed the defeat of the 4 king seagull brothers with his own eyes. 4 supergiant seagulls that used to feed on sea kings were actually killed like this. Swarms of heavy bombs were also unable to destroy the Discovery. How could this happen? Leo still couldn't imagine it. He was able to roam the sky over the sea for a long time. Mainly rely on himself and his partners, the 4 brothers King Seagull. Now the 4 brothers of King Hyu are all killed in battle, he really can only fight on his own now. Even if this is the case, we need to take a gamble. Leo made up his mind. He couldn't take this breath now. Leo quickly lowered his altitude, and took advantage of the influence of the stormy weather to fly to the Discovery from a low altitude over the sea. On the Discovery, everyone was panting after the fierce battle. The battle severely damaged the deck of the Discovery and part of the upper cabin. Although the storm was fierce, the Discovery was a meter-heavy warship, so there was no need to be afraid of these waves. Just drift freely on the sea. At the front of the deck, everyone is resting together. I'm so tired, Nami said. Scared me to death, Chopper said. It's a tough battle. Zoro, who has amazing endurance, also said. Everyone fought really well, Robin said. Sanji, the king of ninjas, and Rog went to the kitchen below the cabin and took some drinks and food. Everyone is tired too, let's eat and drink, Rog said. Sanji gave 3 bottles of juice to Nami, the goddess of spring water, and Robin respectively. Miss Nami, goddess, Miss Robin, you can enjoy the juice I carefully prepared, Sanji said. Thank you, Nami said. Sanji, you are always so thoughtful, said the spring goddess. Robin also took the juice and said, Sanji, you are really a nice gentleman. After Sanji heard the compliments from the 3 beauties, his whole body trembled. Sanji is happy to serve you, Sanji said lovingly. Roger, Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper start eating meat and bread. The Ninja King toasts Zoro with wine. Although it is still windy and rainy, everyone is very happy. This battle is really exciting. I must write Captain Usopp's memoirs, Usopp said. Chopper cheered and said, okay. Luffy, on the other hand, ate and drank without caring about others. After talking with other people, Rog said thoughtfully again, by the way, there is no result for that Leo yet. Usopp said, that's right. But I think he must be afraid of our strong combat power, and he has already gone somewhere. Roger was a little skeptical, and said, I always feel that he will make a comeback. Chopper was also lost in thought, and said, I don't think he can give up. Now Leo was the only one left who didn't show up. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 421. But they came back to their senses again. What kind of sword energy impact is this? Said the Frogman. Seeing that the opponent didn't suffer much damage, Sauron also understood how much the attack was affected in the sea water. The same eagle wave sword energy is enough to kill a group of enemies on land. Here it can only cause some shocks and minor injuries. These frogmen began to attack Sauron. They swim very fast. Although they are not a fishman race like Shukro, they have all undergone special seawater combat training for a long time, and their swimming and attack speeds are very fast. Zoro swung his samurai sword to block the opponent's harpoon. But the opponent's harpoon attack was very fast, which made Sauron feel a lot of pressure. The frogmen wielded harpoons and stabbed Sauron continuously. Clang clang. The two samurai swords in Sauron's hands were constantly intersecting with the sharp harpoons in the frogmen's hands. During the fierce battle, Sauron felt that the group of people in the sea were truly masters. If it was changed to the deck, this group of frogmen would be wiped out obediently if there were 10 times as many frogmen. But Sauron is a super powerful swordsman after all, and he can still deal with these things. Even if these frogmen seem to have improved their strength in fighting in the sea water, it is not enough for Sauron to fight them as elite enemies. Puff. A frogman was slashed in the chest, and blood quickly filled the surrounding sea water. He struggled for a few times and then died completely. Another frogman stabbed Sauron with a harpoon. Zoro dodged fiercely, and the samurai sword on his right arm pierced the opponent's throat. The frogman was also killed. 2 more frogmen attacked at the same time. 2 sharp harpoons pierced from the front and back at the same time. Sauron quickly dodged a harpoon ahead. The rear harpoon continued to stab at his back. Zoro slammed the opponent's harpoon with 2 katana swords. Then the katana continued to slide along the harpoon and arrived in front of the opponent. Puff. Zoro crossed 2 samurai swords. This frogman's chest was slashed with 2 bloody wounds. He struggled in the sea. However, the force of Sauron's final beheading was weakened and he did not kill it completely. But the blood in the opponent's body kept gushing from the wound. While the frogman was struggling, a shadow approached from behind him. When he turned his head, he was shocked to see the other party. Shark. The frogman said in shock. Sharks have a keen sense of smell for blood. The blood flowing from the bodies of the frogmen who had died earlier attracted them. The shark bit the frogman's upper body with one bite. The lower body left outside struggled for a while and then stopped. Not only this one shark, there are more than 10 sharks coming. This is a school of sharks. The remaining frogmen are forced to deal with the sharks as well. A frogman is targeted by a shark that makes a quick dash for him. Kill. The frogman swung a sharp harpoon at the shark's gills and killed it. The shark's gills were severely injured, and he struggled hard to get up. Puff. The frogman drew out his harpoon again and swam under the shark. He aimed at the shark's heart and killed it. The shark's heart is located just below the shark's body, just behind the head. Frogmen are very familiar with ocean torpedoes such as sharks, so they can kill sharks with one blow. The frogmen fought with the sharks. These frogmen were so skilled that they actually used harpoons to kill the sharks one by one. Sauron took the opportunity to attack. A shark is fighting a frogman. Zorro swam over with his two knives in hand. Two swordsman style. Sauron beheaded both the frogman and the shark. In this way, Sauron beheaded the remaining frogmen and sharks one after another. The fierce battle between the Ninja King and the shark man Shukro. He really had to admit that the Murloc's fighting power in sea water was simply unimaginable. Shukro is actually different from the three fighting brothers and Boam in that he is not from the navy. But he was discovered by Captain Ahab after he became a pirate and invited to join the pirate group. Shukro is so powerful that it's hard to resist. He wields a harpoon and kills swiftly and nimbly. "Asshole, you can't compare to me!" Shukro roared as he fought. Shukro's fighting like this made the Ninja King feel irresistible. The King of Ninja himself uses ninja martial arts with high strength. But in the face of Shukro's extremely powerful harpoon attack, it seemed very lackluster. The main reason is that here is in the sea water, and Shukro's own advantages as a sharkman have been brought into full play. Shukro swung a sharp harpoon and knocked the Ninja King back again and again. The Ninja King was also forced to move away as quickly as possible to distance himself. Sakro is in hot pursuit. Shukro's fierce attack made the King of Ninjas have to use more powerful fighting methods. The Ninja King took out several exploding shurikens and threw them at Shukro. Boom 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 boom. With several huge explosions, exploding shurikens exploded around Shukro. However, the power of these explosions was greatly weakened by the sea water. But even this has affected Shukro to a greater or lesser extent. Shukro's peripheral vision is now affected. At this time, another kunai flew from the back. But to King Ninja's shock, the kunai hit Shukro's body but failed to pierce. Sharkman's skin is so strong. Shukro turned around and quickly swam towards the Ninja King. Shukro swam close to the body of the Ninja King. "Go to hell!" Shukro stabbed him with a harpoon. The Ninja King tried his best to avoid the attack, and took out a pocket steel needle and quickly threw it at Shukro. The steel needle didn't hit anywhere else, but hit the inside of Shukro's mouth. The Ninja King swam away quickly. Shukro wanted to give chase, but felt a pain in his mouth. He quickly pulled out the steel needle. But it was already stabbed inside the mouth. It also caused some bleeding. "This little trick can even hurt me," Shukro said disdainfully. Shukro quickly grasped the harpoon with both arms and stabbed towards the Ninja King. But when Shukro was about to assassinate the Ninja King, his body suddenly became sluggish. The Ninja King easily dodged the attack. Shukro looked surprised, and said, "Why is this happening? I feel a little paralyzed all over my body." The Ninja King said, "The steel needle just now is a needle that sees blood and is highly poisonous. Once it penetrates into the body of a living creature, even if it has the slightest contact with the blood, it can paralyze the living creature's body. The Ninja King just used a poisonous hidden weapon." Shukro felt that his whole body quickly became sluggish and his consciousness became blurred. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 422. Ordinary humans would have been killed or paralyzed long ago. As an extremely strong sharkman, Shukro has a strong body resistance. But it still became paralyzed quickly. Although he was still barely able to move, he could no longer maintain the fight. Shukro looked at the Ninja King. The Ninja King drew his ninja sword again. Shukro, the dynasty of ninjas, rushed over. He swung the ninja sword and chopped off Shukro's arm holding the harpoon. After cutting off Shukro's arm holding the harpoon, the Ninja King swung his ninja sword and violently slashed at Shukro's body for a while. After this killing, the chest, abdomen, and neck of Shukro's body were opened. Together with the dispersal of the blood and the paralyzing effect of the poison, Shukro gradually lost consciousness. Shukro eventually died under the sword of the Ninja King. After successfully knocking out Shak, the Ninja King reunited with Zoro. Now the two are finally able to use the super strong kelp to destroy the propeller and rudder of the Beluga submarine. Sauron wrapped super strong kelp around the propeller and rudder of the submarine. After tens of seconds, the super strong kelp began to grow rapidly. Wind both the propeller and the rudder. The badly damaged propeller and rudder stopped functioning. In the wheelhouse of the Moby Dick, Captain Ahab asked, "What's going on? Why didn't the Moby Dick move?" The crew of the Beluga said, "It seems that the propeller and rudder were damaged by something." Captain Ahab frowned after hearing this. "Okay, hurry up and go up now," Captain Ahab said. "Yes," the driver said. The driver quickly manipulated the Beluga and began to float up. The submarine Beluga began to surface. The mighty submarine began to expel seawater from its storage tanks to the surface. The interior of the submarine is empty, so it has buoyancy. But filling the water storage tank with seawater allowed the submarine to sink into the sea. The submarine can make the submarine float or sink by adjusting the amount of seawater in the water storage tank. The Beluga now makes the submarine more buoyant by draining seawater from its internal water storage tanks. Sauron and the King of Ninjas also saw this. I saw that the Beluga submarine had already begun to float. The Beluga submarine quickly rose to the surface. On the surface of the sea a huge submarine breaks through the sea. This time in the lower cabin of the Discovery. This floor is the firepower cabin filled with heavy artillery. Rog, Usopp, and Chopper are all on this floor. Just now Rog has already loaded these heavy artillery with heavy shells. At this moment, the three of them all saw waves rolling on the sea in the distance. Then a huge object emerged from the churning surf. "What is this?" Chopper said in surprise. "Could it be?" Usopp said in shock. "Submarine," Rog said in shock. "Didn't expect this submarine to be so huge. The Discovery is 100 meters long and is already a heavy warship. But the Beluga that broke through the sea was a full 80 meters long. Although the Beluga is not as huge as the Discovery, it is not far behind." After the Moby Dick surfaced, Rog said to Usopp, "Okay, let's prepare for the bombardment." Only then did Usopp react from the shock and said, "That's right." The three of them prepared these heavy artillery to bombard the submarine Moby Dick that came up. At this time, the top of the Beluga submarine was opened with a cover. Out came the three fighting brothers, some frogmen, and finally Captain Ahab. Captain Ahab looked at the Beluga, and he looked towards the stern of the Beluga. "I saw something wrapped around the propeller and rudder." Captain Ahab said, "It looks like those guys did it." Captain Ahab and his men rushed to the rear of the submarine. They saw giant kelp tangled around the submarine's stern propeller and rudder. At this time, Captain Ahab and his men were going to remove the kelp. It was in the firepower compartment of the Discovery at this time. Usopp helped with the calibration. Rog used rattan whips to string together the pull ropes of all heavy artillery. "Okay, fire," Usopp said. Rog yanked the rattan whip, and a row of heavy artillery fired in unison. A row of heavy artillery shells shot out. This row of heavy shells flew towards the stern of the Moby Dick. Captain Ahab and the others saw the incoming shells and quickly avoided them. Boom 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 boom. Heavy shells hit the stern area of the submarine. With the violent explosion, the submarine's stern was blown into a mess with thick smoke billowing from it. Captain Ahab looked towards the stern full of trembling. The anger in his heart erupted like a volcano. The Moby Dick was a submarine that Captain Ahab had stolen from the Navy and spent an astonishing amount of money and energy to renovate. Now the crucial stern of the Beluga was partially damaged. Captain Ahab looked at the explorer with hatred. In Discovery's Fire Bay, Usopp and Chopper were very happy. Great, hit. Usopp dances with Chopper. Roger looked at the beluga on the sea. Although the beluga was damaged, it is difficult to guarantee that this huge submarine will not have other weapons. Captain Ahab on the Moby Dick looks towards the Discovery. Now the stern of the beluga has been blown up. In this case, it will be difficult to repair the beluga for the time being. The crew looked at Captain Ahab, and then at the Discovery. They also showed expressions of hatred. Captain Ahab gave the order and said, "Attack that warship with rockets." Captain Ahab's order was quickly conveyed. The back of the Moby Dick. Suddenly a huge hatch opened. After the huge hatch was opened, more than 10 rows of rocket launchers were revealed. There are also rotating wheel turrets under these rocket launchers, which can adjust the direction. A crew member reported to Captain Ahab, "Captain Ahab, the rocket launcher is ready." Captain Ahab said, "Okay. Then let's attack the target and destroy the warship." The rocket launchers on the back of the beluga were aimed at the Discovery. These rockets were observed by the crew on the Moby Dick using the artillery observation mechanism. Emission. The bazookas on the back of the beluga fired together. Dense rockets took off and flew towards Discovery. On the deck of the Discovery, Luffy saw these rockets. "Wow, that's cool," Luffy said happily. These rockets look spectacular and Luffy feels like fireworks. At this time, Rogue, Usopp and Chopper were still in the fire bay. Everyone was preparing to reload these heavy artillery pieces. But before the loading was completed, groups of rockets were seen rising from the back of the beluga. The rockets extended their trajectory toward Discovery. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 423. These rockets hit the Discovery like a meteor shower. Suddenly an earth-shaking explosion sounded. The deck and hull of the Discovery were concentrated by rockets and countless explosions occurred. These explosions continued to shake the rover violently. It was even worse on the deck of the Discovery. Luffy sucked in a sharp breath. Rubber dot balloon. Luffy inflated himself into a balloon after inhaling. After Luffy inflated into a balloon, a rocket hit him. Luffy's body flicked away the rocket. The rocket exploded in mid-air. However, there are too many rockets coming, and Luffy's efforts to bounce them away have limited effect. After all, there are too many rockets. Intensive rockets hit the Discovery. The Discovery was hit by dense rockets and the entire deck quickly turned into a sea of flames. The Discovery was so destructive that even Sanji and Nami at the front of the deck were seriously disturbed. "Oh my God!" Nami was horrified. Sanji stood in front of Nami very bravely. "Miss Nami, leave it to the gentleman," Sanji said. A rocket shot over, Sanji jumped up and kicked it away. The kicked rocket exploded in the distance. Another rocket bomb flew over, and Sanji used his powerful foot skills to continuously kick the incoming rocket bombs away. A total of more than 100 rockets hit Discovery before and after. The dense rockets made Discovery feel like it had been hit by a meteor shower. Not only was the deck severely damaged, but the side hull was also severely damaged. Of course, the Discovery is a meteor warship after all, so it won't sink. In the firepower compartment of the Discovery level, Usopp lay on the ground like a faint. Chopper shook Usopp aside and said, "Cheer up, Usopp." Usopp barely stood up in a daze. "It's terrible, we still survived," Usopp said in horror. Rog looked around, and the firepower cabin also suffered some damage. The fire bay was hit by some rockets. These rockets hit the fire bay and then destroyed some heavy artillery. "We have to prepare, the enemy may attack again," Rog said. "Now Captain Ahab's Moby Dick may be able to attack again." Chopper said, "What should we do?" Rog said, "We must quickly bombard these remaining heavy artillery and destroy the opponent's submarine as quickly as possible." Chopper said, okay. Usopp also became motivated and said, okay, I'll hurry up and work hard. Captain Usopp must go all out. Because the submarine may attack again, Usopp is naturally afraid of this. The situation of the rocket group attack just now was terrible. No matter what, Usopp didn't want to be attacked like that again. Roger, Chopper and Usopp worked hard to load the remaining heavy artillery. On the back of the Moby Dick, Captain Ahab and some crew members also felt relieved for a while after seeing the Discovery being attacked by rockets. Haha, they were beaten like that too, said the three fighting brothers. Captain Ahab said fiercely, this is the consequence of opposing me. One of the crew members hurriedly said, Captain Ahab, I'm afraid the enemy will counterattack. Captain Ahab took another look at the stern of the ship, which had been destroyed in the previous bombardment. Okay, quickly let the rockets prepare to attack again. Captain Ahab gave an order. Obey. The crew hastened to carry out the order. The rocket launchers of the Beluga quickly reloaded again. On the deck of the Discovery, Nami is with Sanji and Luffy near the bow of the ship. The rocket attack just now caused great damage to the deck. Even the original intact giant wooden masts and sails were severely damaged. It's scary, Nami said with lingering fear. Don't worry. There are gentlemen protecting ladies, Sanji said. It was too much just now, our warship has become like this, Luffy said. Okay, we need to continue fighting later. I'm afraid the opponent won't give up, the goddess of spring water said. Sanji looked at the Beluga in the distance and said, now we still need to move some warships. Now the bottom of the Discovery was blown through before, and now the giant wooden mast and sails have been damaged again. In this case, it still needs to be moved to avoid further damage to the Discovery as much as possible. Okay, let's go, Nami said. Sanji hastened to steer the rudder and continue forward. Although the Discovery was severely damaged, it was still barely able to sail. The Discovery continued to sail, while Sauron and the King of Ninjas swam to the side of the Discovery from the sea. The Ninja King took out special props for climbing and helped him and Zoro climb up together. King Ninja and Zoro are back on the deck of the Discovery. The two of them sighed when they saw the messy deck. I didn't expect that this place would suffer such huge damage, Sauron said. Is everyone else okay? The Ninja King said. The two hurried to find others. Finally, they meet up with Sanji and the others at the bow of the ship. Now Discovery is sailing hard. In the fire bay of the Discovery, Rog, Chopper, and Usopp loaded the heavy shells together. After loading the heavy shells, the three were ready to attack. It's all ready, Roger said. Rog used Divine Whip to string together the remaining heavy artillery ropes. Okay, start aiming, Usopp said. Usopp started aiming. Although these heavy artillery are lined up, Usopp can use the inclination of the Discovery's hull to aim. Come on, make sure to hit it, Chopper said encouragingly. At this moment, on the Moby Dick, the crew reported to Captain Ahab, Captain Ahab, the rocket launcher is ready again. Captain Ahab said, okay, the bombardment begins. The rocket launchers on the Beluga submarine aimed at the Discovery. Boom! A burst of deafening bombardment resounded through the sea and sky. Hundreds of rockets flew into the air and took off towards the Discovery. At the same time, inside the firepower module of the Discovery. After seeing the Beluga launch a rocket, Rog pulled the ropes of the groups of heavy artillery with the rattan whip. Rows of heavy artillery fired powerful heavy shells. On the sea between Beluga and Discovery, cannonballs and rockets flew each other. On the deck of the Discovery, swarms of rockets ejected. Zoro wields 3 katana swords. Crow. Demon Hunt. Sauron quickly made a slashing attack, cutting off more than a dozen rockets that flew over in succession. These severed rockets flew to the surroundings under the power of the sword energy and finally exploded. The Ninja King aimed at the incoming rocket and threw an explosive shuriken. After a while of explosions, Several rockets were detonated by the explosive shuriken. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 424. The goddess of spring water whispered a spell, and raised an iron axe in her hand. Hell of the wind. The force formed by dozens of winds slashed at the rockets. After a while of roaring, the rockets were detonated by the wind. Robin crossed his arms, and the city's woolen arms grew from his body, superimposed on each other and used to block the shells. Rubber balloon. Luffy inhaled sharply and turned himself into a balloon, then deflected several incoming rockets. Sanji kicked the rockets away with his feet. However, there was a shocking explosion on the deck and hull of the Discovery, which was already in a mess. The hull of the Discovery, which was already severely damaged, was now even more damaged by the rocket explosion. The entire huge warship began to vibrate violently. At the same time, the hull of the Beluga was hit by more than a dozen heavy shells. Although there are not many of these heavy artillery shells, each one is as powerful as several rockets. Boom 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 boom. After the hull of the Beluga submarine was bombarded by heavy artillery shells, a violent explosion began. Even Captain Ahab, who was on the back of the Moby Dick, quickly jumped into the sea. But the three fighting brothers and some frogmen were not so lucky. They were flying blood and flesh in the explosion. The submarine Beluga was severely damaged by this round of shells. After this round of shelling, the rocket launchers on the back of the Beluga were also severely destroyed. After suffering this wave of shells, the rocket launcher on the back of the Beluga was severely damaged. The white whale can now be said to be seriously damaged. It is almost difficult to carry out another round of rocket attacks effectively. Because the rocket launchers of the Beluga are located in the open rear hatch. So being hit by shells will be devastating. And the Discovery, because of the heavy artillery in the cabin on the side of the hull, is placed like a row of cannons. In this way, most of the heavy artillery of the Discovery are well preserved. Of course, Discovery also suffered considerable damage in previous attacks. Inside the firepower compartment of the Discovery, which has survived another round of rocket attacks, Rogue, Usopp, and Chopper prepare the remaining heavy artillery for the attack. The remaining heavy artillery aimed at the Beluga. Okay, reloading is complete, Chopper said. The aiming is also over, Usopp said. Emission. Rogue manipulated the cane whip to pull away the clusters of pull ropes. The remaining 10 or so heavy artillery fired at the same time. There was a burst of rumbling shelling. More than a dozen heavy artillery shells were fired. These heavy shells pierced the sky and flew towards the Moby Dick. The Beluga exploded violently after being hit. This time, the already damaged hull was further damaged. A violent explosion occurred on the hull of the Moby Dick. This time, the Beluga was not able to launch a powerful rocket attack like before. The hull of the Beluga trembled violently and exploded violently. In this way, Rogue, Usopp, and Chopper continued to fill the shells and bombard them. It was bombarded 3 times in succession. At the 5th time, the hull of the Beluga exploded violently. Even the internal ammunition depot was detonated. After an astonishing explosion, it sank into the rolling waves. After sinking into the rolling waves, only a small vortex was left behind and then disappeared. After the white whale sank, Rogue, Usopp, Chopper, Zoro, Sanji, Nami, the Fountain Goddess, the King of Ninja and Luffy all saw this scene. Great! Everyone cheered. The Beluga, a submarine capable of posing a fatal threat to the Discovery, was finally sunk. The enemy also sank into the rolling waves. Roger, Usopp and Chopper arrived on the deck. The crowd hugged and cheered excitedly. We won, Chopper shouted happily. Under the leadership of Captain Usopp, Everyone achieved victory, Usopp said excitedly. Zoran and the King of Ninjas have made great achievements, Rog praised. Excellent, said the Ninja King. Sanji, I want to eat meat to celebrate, Luffy said happily. Great, the treasure has been saved, Nami said happily. Everyone on the deck was cheering. The sinking of the Moby Dick was a good outcome for everyone. Finally, there is no need to estimate the terrible deep-sea killer. After cheering for a while, Sanji said, okay, to celebrate. Let's have a banquet. I'll cook food for everyone. At this moment, a voice suddenly came. It's too early for you to be happy. Everyone looked and saw Captain Ahab standing on the deck. He's not dead yet, and he's still here. Just now, Captain Ahab kicked in time and happened to be in the sea, and then swam to distance himself. After discovering that the beluga was destroyed, he swam to the side of the Discovery, and climbed up with his own climbing skills. He actually survived, Chopper and Usopp said in shock. Roger, Luffy, and Sanji looked at each other seriously. This pirate captain with superb swordsmanship actually survived. Captain Ahab looked at everyone with hatred, and said, my Moby Dick has been destroyed by you. Then I will kill you and take over this warship completely. Zoro held the scabbard at his waist. Okay, let's continue our duel. Zoro stepped forward and said. Captain Ahab looked at Sauron and said, okay. Captain Ahab also held the hilts of the western swords at his waist and quickly pulled out the two western swords. Sauron found that Captain Ahab had replaced a new western sword on his right leg. One was smashed before and now a new one has been replaced. The confrontation between the three swords and the three swords continues. Zoro took the hood off his arm and wrapped it around his head. He quickly pulled out the three samurai swords from his waist, held them in his mouth, and held them in both hands. Come on, Zoro said. Is that so? Then I'm welcome, said Captain Ahab. The others were all engrossed in observing the battle. The opponent is the last enemy and also the most powerful enemy. Spiral minced meat. Captain Ahab placed his left leg on the ground, put his right leg flat, and rotated the three swords with the western swords in both arms like a spiral meat mincing instrument. The sword energy flying around is enough to kill any enemy. Three sword style, Tornado. Zoro wielded three katana swords with great force, forming a huge rotating sword energy storm similar to a tornado around him. The sword energy of the two people was spinning, and they collided fiercely. A lot of sawdust was flying across the deck. The figures of the two people then handed over. There was a harsh sound of swords being exchanged for a while. Clang clang. The lights and swords of the two sides intertwined with each other, making people dazzled. Except for the Ninja King, no one else could understand who was attacking and who was defending when both sides fell to the ground. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 425. Sauron and Captain Ahab fought fiercely. The swords and swords on both sides come and go. Ghost Slayer. Sauron crossed his arms, and his body rushed forward. The three samurai swords are all beheading the enemy. Captain Ahab's three western swords attack simultaneously. The samurai sword and the western sword handed over, and the attacks of the two sides cancelled each other out. Rhinoceros. This time, Sauron only used the samurai sword clenched in both arms to kill Captain Ahab's western sword. Captain Ahab's swordsmanship was excellent, and he blocked Sauron's attack every time during the battle. Sauron's attacks were frequently blocked, making this duel a protracted battle. Super Scissor Cut. Captain Ahab wields the western sword like scissors and slashes quickly and swiftly. Zoro desperately swung his samurai sword to resist. Not only did the opponent's western sword form a scissors-like posture, and it also formed a giant scissors-like sword energy to attack forward. This sword energy slashed towards Sauron. Sauron quickly raised his head and avoided the sword energy. But then Captain Ahab followed suit physically. The western sword on his right leg was aimed at Sauron's abdomen, and it was a sword. Zoro's abdomen was pierced. After Sauron's abdomen was pierced, everyone was shocked. Sauron! Usopp and Roger shouted in shock. Sauron was stabbed and the whole person flew out. Finally, after a few somersaults, I stood firmly on the ground made of a samurai sword in front of me. Zoro glanced at the wound on his abdomen. A large gash was pierced through the abdomen. The wounded Sauron's abdomen was bleeding profusely. He gritted his teeth and looked at Captain Ahab again. Captain Ahab saw the joy on Sauron's wounded face. "Keep fighting, you bastard," said Captain Ahab. "No problem," Zoro said as he stood up again. Zoro swung 3 samurai swords and rushed forward again. Captain Ahab swung 3 western swords to attack. 3 swords technique. 3,000 worlds. Zoro's 3 samurai swords were spun like a windmill. The sword chi formed a whirling sword chi storm without any omissions. Captain Ahab swung 3 western swords, and his whole body spun. Whirlwind. In this extremely fierce confrontation, both sides exerted their full strength. Sauron turned into a cloud of sword energy and passed directly through Captain Ahab, reaching behind him. There were several wounds on Sauron's body, and blood flew everywhere. But after Captain Ahab's chest was beheaded, blood flew everywhere. He fell down on his back. Usopp, Rogue, and others witnessed the entire battle. Captain Ahab was beheaded. Sauron has won. Zoran, you win. Chopper, Usopp and others cheered together. After Sauron won, his body also trembled for a while. He then fell down too. Sauron. Everyone hurried over. Chopper hurriedly healed Sauron. After a while, Sauron gradually woke up. "Okay, Sauron. You're finally awake," Chopper said with a sigh of relief. Zoro looked at the bandages on his abdomen and arms and chest. After being injured in the battle just now, Chopper applied medicine to Sauron, sewed up the wound and wrapped a bandage. Sauron looked around and saw the body of Captain Ahab. Captain Ahab is already dead on deck. Sauron was filled with emotion when he saw the body of Captain Ahab. "I didn't expect to defeat you so quickly," Zoro said. Captain Ahab is considered a good swordsman, but he is not yet Sauron's opponent. Then Sauron and others wrapped Captain Ahab's body in a blanket. From the severely damaged deck, they found the body of Boom the explosive killer. Boom had been killed in an earlier rocket strike. Boom's body was also wrapped in a blanket. Sauron and Rog threw their bodies into the sea. A sea burial was held for 2 former enemies. After seeing the 2 bodies sinking into the sea, everyone turned their eyes back to the deck. The deck of the Discovery was in a mess just now because of the intensive bombardment of the rockets. "Okay, I'm afraid we have to repair this warship again," Rog said. Usopp said, "It's all up to you." Luffy said, "After a hard fight, we can celebrate." Sanji said, "Yeah, it scares the lady. I was going to have a dinner party. Now everyone is working very hard and need to enjoy themselves." "Dinner, great," Usopp said, looking at the sunset in the sky. "Okay, let's get some ingredients quickly," Sanji said. "It is good." Everyone shouted together. Although the Discovery was severely damaged, after all, there is still a part of the front deck of the warship that is intact. But after this battle today, everyone felt exhausted. Everyone wants a good rest now. Everyone started to prepare the ingredients. This time everyone was more daring in order to get the ingredients. Rog made a huge rattan net with a rattan whip and threw it into the sea to start fishing for sea fish. Usopp and Luffy are mainly responsible for helping with fishing. They even kill marine fish, bleed them and throw them into the sea as bait to attract sharks and other advanced predators. In addition to ordinary sea fish, many sharks were also caught. The Ninja King even went into the sea to catch scallops and conchs himself. Rog used the power of plant fruits to transform plants and created many fruits and vegetables. Sanji kept busy in the kitchen. Robin and Na went to help themselves. The goddess of springs uses a silver axe combined with magic to create a large amount of ice. Chopper and Zoro also helped. There was laughter on the explorer. In the west where the sea meets the sky, the sun finally sets completely. After the sun went down, a grand dinner began on the deck of the explorer. The dining table is brightly lit and filled with delicacies. Grilled scallops, grilled conch, shark fin, braised shark chunks and various seafood are all available. Strawberries, bananas, apples, pears, and oranges are all available. Ladies, please enjoy and everyone else can eat too. Sanji said happily. Everyone started the banquet. On the sea at night, the sea breeze is cool, everyone enjoys this delicious seafood feast, and drinks rum and fruit juice to their heart's content. It's delicious, Luffy was still devouring the delicious seafood. Roger ate the shark fin and exclaimed, "It's really good." Chopper ate delicious strawberry cake, talking and laughing with Usopp. Usopp proclaims his glorious deeds. The goddess of spring, Robin, and Nami are chatting together. Zoro and the Ninja King ate grilled scallops and drank ice water. Because Sauron was injured and couldn't drink rum, the two of them just drank ice water. The Ninja King said to Sauron, "Sauron, your swordsmanship is really superb." Sauron said, "I still need to strengthen. After all, my goal is the world's #1 swordsman." Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 426. The Ninja King said, "Then you need to keep working hard." For Sauron, it is precisely because he always has that powerful person at the top of the sword that cannot be surpassed that allows him to continue to work hard to improve himself. Kendo is endless. Even if one day you can gain the strength to defeat all opponents, you need continuous practice. Sauron's hard work day after day has made him constantly improve. Today's defeat of Captain Ahab in battle was all due to Sauron's unrelenting practice. Sauron is constantly moving forward. The King of Ninjas said, "The goal you mentioned is to defeat the world's best swordsman Hawkeye, right?" Sauron said, "Yes. It's a pity that I fought against him once, but I lost miserably. But next time I will definitely win." The King of Ninja looked at the scar on Sauron's chest, which Sauron once said was injured by Hawkeye. The Ninja King said approvingly, "Okay. But there are countless great swordsmen in my hometown Wano country. Many of them have fought against Hawkeye. But all of them were defeated. Of course some of them won. It is an honor to be defeated. When you go to Wano country and fight against those swordsmen whose strength is close to that of Hawkeye, maybe you can really approach and surpass him." After hearing this, Sauron's eyes lit up, and he said, "Okay, definitely. I will definitely go to Wano country to compete with those master swordsmen." Wano country is the home of samurai and ninja in the world. There are countless masters who are famous and hidden in the world. Even if King of Ninja didn't advocate so much, Zoro would go to Wano country to practice sooner or later. Sanji is courting the three ladies. Everyone at this dinner party was relaxed for a while. After this relaxation, everyone who felt tired went back to the cabin below to rest. Although part of the cabin below was bombarded by rockets, it was basically well preserved. The night became calm again. After a night, it was time for the next day. The sun is still high in the sky. After everyone had breakfast together, the restoration of the Discovery began. But now the difficulty lies in repairing the bottom of the ship. The transmission part of the previous Discovery was severely damaged after being hit by a deep-sea torpedo. Fortunately, the use of the hatch to separate the cabin filled with seawater allowed the warship to avoid further sinking. Now it is necessary to find a way to fill the bottom of the boat and drain the water. Roger, the spring goddess, Sanji, and the Ninja King went to the bottom of the boat together. The goddess of the fountain used magic. The power of distance. Without needing 3 axes, the goddess of spring used the powerful magic she learned on Magic Island to squeeze out the seawater from the cabins that had been filled with seawater. Taking this opportunity, Rog, Sanji, and the King of Ninjas hurried into action. Rog transformed the giant wooden hand. This time, countless pieces grew from the front of the wooden stake on the arm, and blocked the gap at the bottom of the ship. Once plugged, Sanji and the King of Ninja helped seal the gap with wooden planks and glue. After finishing all these, the bottom of the explorer can be used again for the time being. Then a series of reinforcements were carried out. Finally, there is no problem in making this warship basically big. Next came the need to repair Discovery's deck. Everyone started the restoration work on the deck of the Discovery. Rogue created a group of trees with the fruit power of the plant, and then Sauron cut the trees into planks. Everyone worked together to hammer and nail the planks into the deck. The deck was severely damaged by the intensive rocket attacks before, and now it is almost equivalent to relaying the entire deck of the Discovery. The restored deck looks like new, because the giant wooden masts and sails were also damaged. Rog reached the side of the giant wooden mast, hugged the giant wooden mast with both arms and used the extremely powerful plant fruit power. The power of the plant fruit was injected into the giant wooden mast. The huge wooden masts were regrown, and the huge sails that were originally damaged like plant leaves were also repaired. The giant wooden mast is different from ordinary masts, because it was transformed by Rog with living plants, so it is always in a living state. Therefore, Rog was still able to repair the giant wooden mast and sails. It's finally done, Rog said after repairing the giant wooden mast. After a lot of hard work, the warship Discovery was finally restored. After the restoration, everyone stood near the bow of the Discovery, enjoying the sea breeze while drinking coconut juice. Now the Discovery continues its voyage into the distance. See this vast sea and sky. The goddess of spring water felt a little emotional again and asked the King of Ninja, once we arrive at the transit port, we need to say goodbye to everyone, right? The Ninja King nodded and said, yes. Although it is a bit regretful, the two must return to their respective belongings. After all, the two are not members of the Straw Hat Pirates. The Spring Goddess is going back to the Magic Island, and the Ninja King is going back to the Wano country. The King of Ninja looked at Nami and asked, well, Nami, how long will it take for us to reach the transit port? After hearing this, Nami took out the nautical chart, looked at it, and said, at the current speed, it will take 5 days. After 5 days, you will reach the island called Gaia Island. There is a famous island on the Great Route. Transit port. Then Nami showed the nautical chart to everyone. There are relevant areas of Gaia Island above. Once they arrive at the transit port of Gaia Island, the Ninja King and the Spring Goddess will be separated from everyone. Thinking of this, everyone sighed for a while. Chopper looked at the Ninja King and the Goddess of Spring Water, and said, I really hope you stay. Usopp said, join us. Captain Usopp can lead everyone around the world's seas. Sanji was even more regretful, and said with a dejected face, Goddess, don't leave. Of course, there are Miss Robin and Miss Nami on board. Of course, everyone knows that everyone has their own belongings. It was like Vivi had to stay in Alabasta. The Spring Goddess and the Ninja King also have their own places. Rog said, okay, everyone will have fun in the next few days. Hold more banquets. Sanji immediately got motivated and said, yes, I will work hard to cook delicious food. Let the goddess eat more of my delicious food. It was almost noon. It's almost time for lunch. Discovery is still sailing on the sea. Just when everyone is feeling hungry and working to prepare lunch. Suddenly Usopp looked up to the sky in surprise. What's wrong? Rog looked at Usopp strangely. Usopp had a weird look on his face. It was as if he had seen something terrifying and surprising. The others also looked up one after another, only to see a huge ship smashing down. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 427. Everyone saw a huge ship descending from the sky. Gosh! Everyone on the Discovery shouted in shock. This huge ship fell from the sky and was about to hit the Discovery. Sanji quickly reacted in an emergency. Hurry up and use the right rudder. Sanji quickly rushed to the rudder and turned the rudder full starboard. Discovery's hull began to turn to starboard. But it wasn't just this gigantic ship that fell from the sky. There are also a large number of sawdust and wood blocks falling down. Crackling clusters of sawdust and blocks fell. Oops, it's like a storm, Sauron said. Wow! Usopp and Chopper shouted together. The two of them ran up and down the deck together. Suddenly Usopp calmed down and stopped running. By the way, this can't be a dream, Usopp said. It's a dream, Chopper said in shock. Usopp looked towards the sky and said, yes, it must be a dream. Otherwise, according to ordinary people's logic, how could a huge ship suddenly fall from the sky? Chopper looked at the sky and said, yes, how could he fall off the ship? The two of them then calmly meditated on the deck. This must be a dream. Usopp and Chopper said calmly. However, large and small wooden blocks continued to fall from the sky, and the huge ship also continued to decrease in height. Some baseball-sized chunks of wood hit Usopp and Chopper on top of their heads. After a while of pain, Usopp reluctantly said, this must be the illusion of being too nervous. Chopper was a little puzzled, and said, why does it feel the same as the real thing? Another huge block of wood, comparable to a house, hit the two of them. At the last moment, Usopp and Chopper suddenly jumped up. This is real. The two quickly left their previous positions. Boom! With a loud noise, a huge wooden block hit the deck where the two people were just now. In any case, Usopp and Chopper couldn't believe that this was an illusion. As the huge ship approached, the fallen pieces of wood became bigger and bigger. Zoro was also forced to draw out his samurai sword and cut some of them open. Rogue uses the giant wooden hand to block some huge wooden blocks. Luffy kept attacking with his fists to resist the falling huge wooden blocks. But the huge ship was getting closer. It was about to hit the Discovery where everyone was. Usopp and Chopper still evaded in great fear. Oh my god, it's really scary. There won't even be dead people falling next, Usopp said in fear. Chopper looked at the sky with a horrified expression and said, Usopp, look. Usopp and Chopper raised their heads to the sky together. I saw a human skull smashing down in the sky above the two of them. The dead man really fell down. Usopp and Chopper shouted in horror. In addition to the wooden blocks, there were also broken canvases, some iron utensils and boxes were also smashed down. Apparently they were all from the huge ship that was going down. The huge ship is getting closer. In the end, there were only a few hundred meters away from the explorer on the sea below. Seen from here, the massive downed ship is bigger than the Discovery. Discovery is a huge warship 100 meters long, but this ship is 200 meters long. The size is even greater. Even now, everyone can see that the bow of the fallen ship has a weird black shape. The dilapidated sails and hull had been damaged by many winds and rains. The huge ship that fell down can be said to be an antique ship. The huge ship that fell down fell further. However, the Discovery also turned the hull to the right. The huge falling ship finally passed the left side of the Discovery's hull. Finally the huge ship crashed into the sea. Thump! The huge ship crashed into the sea and created a huge wave. The Discovery next to it was also bumping violently. Very scary. Everyone on the deck said in fear. Huge waves crashed on the deck. Both Usopp and Chopper were washed away by the waves. Rog quickly grabbed the two of them with his giant wooden hand. Sanji struggled to steady the rudder. The Discovery was barely overturned under the impact of huge waves. Fortunately, this warship is huge after all, able to withstand the impact of these waves. However, the aftermath of the remaining waves caused the explorer to shake repeatedly for a long time. It took a while for the sea to return to normal. The sun was shining brightly on the deck, and everyone was lying on the deck, tiredly waiting for the sun to dry their soaked clothes. "What a nightmare," Nami said with a tired look. "It's like walking back from the gate of hell," Usopp gasped. Chopper looked at Rog and his giant wooden hand, and said, "Rog, thank you." Roger said, "It's okay." Sanji looked around and was relieved to see that Nami, Robin, and the goddess of spring water were all fine. "It's really dangerous." "Fortunately, the rudder was turned in time," Sanji said. If Sanji hadn't turned the rudder in time, the huge ship hit the Discovery, and everyone would have sunk into the bottom of the sea long ago. Luffy looked at some struggling sea fish in surprise on the deck. These sea fish were washed onto the deck just now because of the huge waves. It's like the waves wash all the fish and shrimp in the sea onto the beach. Luffy grabbed a fish in each hand and said happily, "Look, there are so many fresh sea fish. This is really unexpected." This misfortune actually brought some fish to everyone's doorstep. Sauron looked at the various wreckages on the deck and the sea beside the Discovery. On the sea next to the Discovery were the remains of some masts and hulls from the huge ship that had just fallen. The huge ship that fell just now also completely disintegrated when it fell into the sea. Many parts of the hull have sunk into the depths of the sea, and some wreckage is still floating on the sea. Sauron looked at the huge wreckage and said, "What on earth is going on?" Robin came over and looked at the huge wreckage. After looking at these wreckage and combined with the huge ship that crashed just now, she said, "Could it be that this is the legendary Sky Island that crashed down?" Sky Island. Everyone was very surprised when they heard this word. Robin looked at everyone and said, "Yes. According to legend, there are a group of islands floating in the sky above the sea, and the sea in the sky can allow ships to sail." After hearing this, everyone's faces were very strange. Soon Luffy, Usopp and Chopper's faces became full of excitement. "Great to go to Sky Island." The three cheered together. Luffy, Chopper, and Usopp dance and cheer together. What they love most is adventure. Especially after hearing about things like Sky Island. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 428. Sauron said calmly, "It sounds like a trick to deceive children." Being splashed with cold water. Luffy, Chopper, and Usopp all looked bleak. It was as if he had been hit so painfully. The frustrated faces of the three. They both looked at Robin, waiting for the other person to continue saying something. Robin looked at the wreckage on the deck, especially the dead man's skull. "Whether Sky Island exists or not, I'm not sure. But there are indeed some ancient documents that have recorded the mysterious existence. And more importantly, everyone has seen the fall of this huge ship just now," Robin said calmly. Hearing Robin's calm and objective statement and judgment, Usopp, Chopper, and Luffy quickly brightened their faces. "Go to Sky Island." Luffy cheered with Usopp and Chopper. The three cheered enthusiastically again. Nami walked to the side of the boat with a serious expression, looking at the wreckage of those huge ships. There are still many wrecks of huge ships floating on the sea that is still being explored. Luffy went to Nami and said, "Okay, let's go to Sky Island." Nami remained silent, and first looked at the magnetic pointer on her wrist. "I saw the magnetic pointer pointing to the sky. It seems that there are geomagnetic forces generated by islands in the sky." Nami and the others looked at the sky above. "You can only see some clouds that don't know how high they are. Is there really a legendary Sky Island there?" Nami said to Luffy, "Don't be excited. But it's really strange. Could it be that my magnetic pointer is broken? Robin said, no, since there is a point, then there is the geomagnetic force of the island. Hearing this, Luffy said, go to Sky Island. Nami punched the annoying Luffy on the head and said, you should think about it before you decide. Nami looked at the wreckage of the huge ships on the sea again. Nami said, since this huge ship landed from the sky, maybe we can get some information later by salvaging it. At this moment, there was a burst of shouting from the sea. Help! Everyone saw Luffy struggling on the sea. That idiot, Nami said regretfully. Hey, Luffy. What are you doing? Isn't it salvage? Don't forget you can't go into the sea, Usopp said. Luffy struggled and said, I just went to sea to salvage. Seeing Luffy's miserable appearance, Roger also took out the cane whip. Catch it, Luffy. Luffy threw out the cane whip. The vine whip grew rapidly and flew to Luffy's side. The vine whip wrapped Luffy up. Luffy was finally pulled back to the deck under Rog's rattan whip. Chopper helped Luffy spit out the water in his stomach. Luffy finally calmed down. After Luffy recovered and sat on the deck, his expression immediately became energetic. You know what I got? Luffy quickly took out a map. This is a map drawn on parchment. In terms of time, I don't know how many years have passed. Everyone looked at the parchment map. Shown above is a large disc-like land mass surrounded by clouds. Impressively written on it, Sky Island. Sky Island. Everyone was surprised. He actually found a map of the empty island among the huge shipwrecks that just fell from the sky. Everyone was looking at the huge shipwrecks still floating on the sea. In connection with the previous series of events, it can almost be inferred that Sky Island really exists. It is impossible for such a strange thing to happen for no reason. Wow, Sky Island really exists. Luffy danced and cheered with joy along with Usopp and Chopper. Now no one can be too persistent against the existence of Sky Island. Sauron also looked at the parchment map carefully. If only this map had been obtained from ordinary shipwrecks. But this parchment map was found from the wreckage of the huge ship that fell from the sky in front of everyone just now. Nami walked to Luffy's side and carefully checked the parchment map. Robin also looked at the map carefully. The map is still well drawn. Although it has been eroded for an unknown number of years, it is still basically intact. Nami said, okay, in that case. We still need to further salvage more wreckage of this huge ship. Maybe we can get more information about this legendary Sky Island. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper said happily, okay. The three of them are very happy. Now that the information about Sky Island has some clues, everyone is interested in trying to go to Sky Island. Suddenly, Luffy's stomach gurgled for a while. Sanji, I'm hungry, Luffy said. I heard you say that, so do I. Usopp also felt his stomach growling. Sanji looked at them and said, I originally wanted to prepare lunch, but it was destroyed by this huge ship falling from the sky. I'm afraid we need to wait a little longer. Nami said, Sanji, let's make lunch for everyone. We'll get to work later. Sanji immediately became full of joy, and said, okay, Miss Nami. There were also fish washed up by the previous waves on the deck, and Sanji worked with the others. Soon, everyone began to enjoy a delicious sea fish lunch at the table on the deck. After being frightened and exhausted, everyone ate happily. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper are thinking about what Sky Island will look like. Sky Island is really floating on the sea of clouds, Usopp sighed. Are there any scary creatures there? Chopper asked with excitement and confusion. There are other foods there that are not as delicious as meat. Luffy, a big eater, has always fantasized about delicious food. Roger and Robin talk all the time. Robin told what ancient books she knew about the existence of Sky Island. Rog really felt Robin's profound knowledge of ancient books and archaeology. The lunch was finally over after everyone had a feast. However, there are still many wrecks of huge ships on the deck. Everyone still needs to clean up the wreckage on the deck first. I want to examine the skeleton. Robin mainly examined a fallen skeleton. The skeleton was placed in a coffin, and the clothes on his body were already in tatters. And when it fell, the bones of the corpse inside fell out. The dead skull falling from the sky that Usopp and Chopper saw before was the remains of the owner of the skeleton. Robin found the incomplete skull and carefully pieced together the broken bones of the skull's incomplete parts. Okay, Robin put the spliced skull on the deck. When everyone looked at the skull, they saw several holes piercing through it.